Good evening. Today we are bringing you a segment on the changes that babies go through as they enter the world for the first time. Among healthcare professionals, it has become apparent that parents are not aware of many of the important transitions that newborn babies go through. Healthcare professionals are calling on all new parents to be educated on their babies and their amazing capabilities. We now go across to Mrs. P, who will give us more on this segment. I'm here at Mildura-based hospital with a first-time mother who has just given birth after a long, grueling labour. Mrs. Clark gave birth to little Matilda this morning, but like many of the new mothers here, she knew very little about what comes after the baby arrives. We often hear about the developmental changes of the fetus in the womb, but do we know about the vital developments that our infants experience once they are born?
I was very up to date and I was tracking my little Matilda's growth obsessively during the pregnancy. I just wanted to make sure that she was going to be the healthy little girl that I've always wanted. And she was. She got an APGAR score of 9 out of 10, which is considered very healthy. But she wasn't yet fully developed, something that I never knew. And I feel like a lot of mothers didn't know that. We didn't know that their lungs weren't fully developed or that their hole in their heart wasn't a scary thing. In fact, it was quite normal.
We're here today with nurse Emily and Danielle to talk further about the neonatal changes with the newborn baby.
It doesn't surprise me just how little new parents know about the complex adaptations that occur once a neonate is out of utero. Firstly, their cardiovascular system changes from when they exit the uterus.
The foramen ovale closes, or as others call it, the hole in the heart. Before birth, the left ventricle's preload consists of venous return through the foramen ovale. Then, as the pulmonary blood flow contributes more to the left ventricle's venous return, the foramen ovale is forced to close. The ductus arteriosus shunt then closes as it does not need to change the direction of blood flow. The ductus venus will remain open a few days after birth, but will then also eventually close. What mothers need to remember is that these things are all perfectly normal.
Early breastfeeding is vital for development of the infant, a task that many stop doing for various reasons such as discomfort or it's an inconvenience compared to formula. However, breast milk is the best milk.
Since giving birth to my little Matilda, I have enjoyed breastfeeding her and building that connection with my baby. I have discovered that breastfeeding protects her against short-term infections due to the antibodies being transferred between mother and child through the milk. It can even help prevent gastro and diarrhea because breast milk coats the intestinal lining and kills pathogens that cause infection. Breast milk has also been proven to reduce levels of sudden infant death syndrome, which is very serious and we still haven't found the actual cause. But right now, the most amazing thing about breastfeeding Matilda is how quickly and easy it has been to build a strong connection with her. The nurses and midwives here have been extremely helpful and have taught me all the tips and tricks to get a good connection so my Matilda knows how to get the milk properly and I'm not straining my back or having my nipples cracked.
What about reflexes, such as the sucking reflex?
I've noticed so many reflexes already, one of which is the sucking reflex. If I touch her mouth, she already knows that it's time to start breastfeeding. She also pulls her arms and legs together after hearing a loud noise, which the nurses have told me is the startle reflex. There's also the stirp reflex, which is when the baby is touched at the bottom of their feet and they react.
Another interesting area that parents know little about is the umbilical cord. To explain this further is Nurse Emily.
After birth, the baby's connection to the placenta is cut due to the clamping and cutting of the cord. Many new parents do not know what this cutting of the cord actually results in. In the cord, there are 3 vessels, the umbilical vein and 2 umbilical arteries. These are surrounded by what's called Wharton's jelly. So once the cord is cut, the Wharton's jelly responds to the drop in temperature by contracting around these vessels. This essentially acts as the baby's own natural internal clamp. Another major milestone for the baby after birth is its first breath. This is a big step for the newborn as it now no longer relies on its mother for oxygen. Whilst in utero, the baby's alveoli sacs in its lungs are filled with fluid. This is due to the low levels of oxygen. While still inside its mother, there's a high resistance, which puts a lot more pressure on the heart as it's trying to push blood into the lungs. However, once the baby enters the world and takes its first gasp, the alveoli sacs push the fluid out and the baby begins to breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide.
To discuss more complex changes of the fetus is Nurse Daniela.
Throughout pregnancy, many changes occur to the mother and the fetus. For the fetus, one of the main stages is organ formation. I'm going to talk about the lung formation throughout pregnancy and after birth. The first stage is the embryonic stage, which takes place during week 4 or 5. Throughout this stage, the larynx, trachea, which is the windpipe, form the foregut. Also, 2 buds branch off, and these will later be the lungs. At 17 weeks of gestation, fetal lungs are in the pseudoglandular phase, which involves further branching of the buds, which are the lungs, into further areas, which forms the beginning of the capillary walls. At approximately 25 weeks, the canalicea phase forms the blood-air barrier, which allows oxygen to flow in and carbon dioxide to flow out. Furthermore, at the 36th week of gestation, the fetus is in the saccular phase. This phase is the production of surfactant, which assists reducing the lungs of tearing and sticking together once the fetus takes their first breath. The last stage is the alveolar phase, which lasts until birth and then throughout into early childhood. It is characterized by the growth of more bronchioles and air sacs, which is the alveoli, which allows the neonate to inhale oxygen and exhale CO2. Establishing a sleep schedule for your new neonate will assist in the transition for them, both the neonate and the mother. Most neonates will often feed between 2 to 4 hours and will sleep in between. Not every mother will want to establish a schedule immediately, nor will they stick to it if they do. It is a personal choice and a matter of bonding and getting to know their baby. It is important to bond with their baby and meet their needs rather than just feeding and putting them to sleep. Things as playing with a newborn, like reading books, singing to them, cuddling, and if unsettled, using settling strategies as talking to them and gently rocking and patting. Doing these activities in a similar order each day will assist in forming a flexible basic routine for the neonate. The nurses and midwives can assist through providing information on neonate sleeping and feeding patterns, their stages of sleep, and how to put down the baby during day and night. During the day, it is still important that the neonate sleeps, as keeping a baby up all day doesn't necessarily mean that it will sleep through the night. During the day, still expose the neonate to general sources of light by keeping the blinds open and or the lights dimmed if the room is darker than normal. Don't keep the room overly quiet, as it will help the neonate get used to sounds. At night, keep all blinds shut and dimmed, yet keep them on for the baby to still see.
Okay. So a couple of days after birth, you'll give your baby their first bath. So to do this, you want to make sure that you have everything prepared and ready to go before you start the bath. You want to make sure that the water is a lukewarm temperature, and you want to have towels and cloths to wash the baby as well. So you want to make sure once you pop the baby into the bath that you're well supporting its head and you've got a warm cloth that's nice and wet. So you want to start from the head down, just wiping, making sure that you don't get any water in their nose or ear. Wiping its head down at the start. And then slowly progress down the body. And make sure that you leave the genitals till last. We clean them off last. And then once finished, just place the baby into a towel and slowly pat dry the baby so you don't break its skin.